Hey now, what's up everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka ReviewKingMB, and I said I would do it, a spoiler review, a spoiler talk for X-Men Apocalypse. So I'm here to do that. Let's jump right into this because there's so much to talk about. I want to talk about first my biggest complaint really about the movie, Apocalypse, played by Oscar Isaac. Now look, was Apocalypse horrible? Terrible? No, of course not. I just was a little underwhelmed, I guess, by him. This is Apocalypse. This is somebody that I've seen in the cartoons and comic books as this big, huge, hulking figure who was truly evil and truly menacing in all forms, the most powerful mutant ever. And I just felt like he was very typical, paint by numbers. I mean, it's not Oscar Isaac's fault. Oscar Isaac's a great actor. I was excited to see him, what he would do with this. I don't know if he wasn't like physically big enough that Apocalypse was the same size as everybody else. He should have been maybe 7-8 feet tall. Maybe that would have helped. I also don't love the all blue color. Like, I wish there was a little bit more gray to his skin. I know I sound like a comic book nitpicker here, that it didn't look enough like the comics, but that means something to some people. The fact that this might be the only time we ever see Apocalypse in a movie, and it's as underwhelming as it is. Plus, it's Oscar Isaac. You put all this makeup on him, so the performance isn't really there. You don't recognize his voice. You don't get that much of a performance from him. So you almost wonder, why did you cast such a great actor to do that? You could have gotten really almost anybody. Almost anybody. The only moment where I felt like, okay, this is close to Apocalypse was when he was fighting Xavier in his mind, and he grew and got bigger and was beating the fuck out of him, and then Jean Grey and him were facing off and he was huge. Like, that worked. It was the only time it worked. I guess they didn't want to do that in like real time for whatever reason. It's fucking X-Men. It's mutants who can do almost whatever they want, and we don't want to make him grow bigger. Okay. The Four Horsemen, I mean, this is what happens in the comics, that Apocalypse goes off and gets 4 people to be in his group. So I get it, but in the comics, it's usually, from what I understand, it's usually mind control. He can control all of them, and that's how he gets them in his group. Where this movie, it seems like it's free will. He convinces them, hey, you should be with me. And a lot of them are just like, okay. So Archangel, yeah, it was cool to see that scene of him getting the actual metal wings, and that looked great. And I also liked his introduction scene of having that underground fight club thing with Nightcrawler. Like, oh, that was cool. But I didn't know him enough as a character to get why he would go with them. Same thing with Psylocke. Olivia Munn is hot. She looks great in the costume, true to the comics. Like, she looks great. The action with her was great. But she doesn't talk a whole lot. You don't really get much of an understanding for like why she's just joining with him. Why? Same thing with Storm. As much as I like this actress, as much as I love the accent and how she looked with the mohawk, and that worked. But I don't understand why she was willing to join a guy who wanted to destroy the world. There's nothing about Storm, the Storm that we meet, that would make me think, oh, she would want to see the end of the world. She talks about how she looked up to Mystique as a hero. So I didn't really get it. Now, Magneto, Michael Fassbender, makes sense. Here's a guy who, like, some people will say, we get it. He's been through the Holocaust. He's had traumatic loss in his life. We get why he hates humans. You don't need the stuff that happens here. And sure, maybe we've seen in superhero movies before where a character loses their family, wife and daughter, like, and they become evil. But that doesn't mean that we didn't need it. I can understand why he goes through the Holocaust, he loses his mom and his family, why he hates humans. I get it. But some people, we've had so many movies with Magneto as a villain. All these movies of Xavier trying to get him to be good, but he always turns on them and goes back to being evil, that it makes sense why you want to give him even more loss, to hammer it home to, oh yeah, this is why he hates humans. This is why he joins Apocalypse. Like, at least they gave him reason enough that I was willing to go with, and I felt so bad in that scene where his daughter and wife got killed. That was heartbreaking to watch. James McAvoy as Charles Xavier. I love him as Xavier. I've loved him since First Class as this character, but this movie, like, he really feels like Xavier. Just how much he cares for the kids, the students, and how much he just believes in people, thinks that there's good in everybody. I love that about him. Rose Byrne as Moira McTaggart. You could argue that she doesn't do a whole lot as far as plot goes, but it was worth it because it's Rose Byrne. First of all, I love her. But it was worth it to have the funny moments of Xavier, like, secretly wanting to meet her or see her again because of them with their past. And for that alone, I'm okay with it. A lot of comedy beats that worked with them and with Nightcrawler. That was very funny. Quicksilver was funny and epic, badass, awesome. I loved Quicksilver in this movie. I'm not going to say that his scene is better than his scene in Days of Future Past, because in Future Past, I wasn't expecting it. And that was a huge surprise, a huge standout in that movie, and it was something memorable. You talked about it for so long after. This movie, we saw it in the trailer, we knew it was coming, we were expecting that they would try to top it and be bigger, and it was bigger. It looked great. I love just the school blowing up and him saving kids. It worked. Definitely worked. I want to talk about Havoc and Scott, Cyclops, because I love that they brought in that brother relationship, the fact that Havoc was sort of an older teammate of the X-Men, and his death. Who was expecting that? Like, everybody was laughing from Quicksilver saving everybody, that you didn't even realize that Havoc wasn't there until it was said, and it's like, holy fuck, Havoc died. And his death meant something to Scott, and that gave Cyclops even more motivation to want to be an X-Men and stand up and fight, even more than he already would have had. This is why Cyclops matters now in these movies. I feel like he got more to do in this movie than any of the 3 movies before. And that's sad. But what's more sad is that it's true. Now, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey, some of the conflicting reviews, mostly negative reviews, have said things like they don't think Sophie Turner is good as Jean Grey. And I can't believe that. I thought Sophie Turner was great. I really bought her as this character, how powerful she was. I love her meeting Cyclops, and you could tell that that's going to blossom into something. But just at the end of the movie, where Xavier believes in her, trusts in her, like, now he trusts in her. Before, it was, I'm going to shelter her and hold back her powers, to where when she does explode, she hates everybody and wants to kill everybody. This Xavier has learned from that, and he's going to let her go off and be as powerful as she is. And she's going to use that power. We saw the Phoenix, the Fire Phoenix, which never gets old. It was awesome. I love that she helped defeat Apocalypse, how they all felt like a cohesive team in defeating Apocalypse. That was great. Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. I love Jennifer Lawrence. I do. This isn't coming from a place where, like, people who are sick of her or you know, me making a joke about how she's mostly Jennifer Lawrence throughout this movie and you don't see Mystique a whole lot. Because that's true, but I was more upset that she didn't fully feel into this. Days of Future Past, you felt her performance and how she almost went dark, but then was saved. Here, you don't really get or really care about her conflict of not wanting to be at the school or whatever the fuck is her hang-up. It does seem like she kind of phones in her performance. And that's coming from somebody who loves her as an actress, loves her in Silver Linings Playbook. That's her best performance ever. So, yeah. I like what she represents for the kids, the younger kids in the school who look at her as a role model, as a symbol. I like that, but I didn't love her. Now, we have to talk about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Some people complain that the trailer gave it away, that he's in this movie. So when we see William Stryker, we know it's coming. When they fly over Alkali Lake, we know it's coming. When Jean and Scott and Nightcrawler see the cage and she can hear in his head, it's like, oh, that's an animal. No, it's a man. We already know that it's Wolverine. Fine, that's true, but that doesn't take away from how epic that was when he came out wearing his Weapon X gear, which is something I almost thought I'd never see in a movie, and he was just slicing up dudes with his claws, and blood was splattering on the walls. Like, that's the most brutal we've ever seen Wolverine in an X-Men movie. And it was awesome. Like, I loved it. It's my favorite part of the movie, not just because it's Wolverine, but because it was dark. It was the most like the character. He stood out. And I don't know if it was the way it was shot, or maybe the angle of the camera or something. Maybe Hugh Jackman was hunching over, but he looked smaller. Like, he looked the most like Wolverine than he's ever looked before. And I love him as Wolverine. I love his performance. But Hugh Jackman's like 6'3". He's huge. Wolverine is smaller, but he looked smaller. I don't know how they did that. It was great. I loved the moment with him and Jean. Not because they're going to fall in love, or he's going to fall in love with her one day. That's kind of weird. She's younger, so much younger. But more so because she was the one who gave him some memories, leads him on his path to wherever he's going to go. It was such a powerful moment. I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. Now, my other complaint isn't just Apocalypse, but there's so much destruction in this movie, and I get it. It's the apocalypse. It's the end of the world. It makes sense. But it was hard for me to fully get behind all of these buildings disintegrating and all of this destruction happening when, well, for one, we never really deal with, like, civilians who are probably all dying from this. It's just kind of glossed over. But two is that we got that flash forward in Days of Future Past. We saw the future and saw that Xavier's okay, Jean's okay, like these characters are fine in the future. So I'm not scared for Xavier where they're trying to transfer Apocalypse's body into his. Like, I'm never once thinking, oh, he might die. It's like, I know he's not going to die. I know the world's not going to end. You already told me that in your previous movie. And also, it's a travesty that they would show that shot of James McAvoy bald in his chair in that trailer, because that's the very last shot of this movie. And they gave that away in the trailer. That's supposed to be a powerful moment where he loses his hair. But it's like, we already know. You already showed us. Like, stop doing this trailer. Stop showing the end moment of your movie. They did that in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they showed him fighting the Rhino. It's the very last shot of the film. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Anyways, guys, I enjoyed this film. I did. I have my issues here and there. It's not a perfect movie. It's not the best X-Men movie, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be enjoyable, fun, and all. And it did a lot of these characters right, finally, for the first time. Although I did see an article that talked about how much it doesn't make sense how at the end of Days of Future Past, Mystique was pretending to be William Stryker, got Wolverine's body, but then jumped to this movie and you see the real Stryker has Wolverine. And they don't explain how that happened, why that happened. That's an issue. It's a big issue, but let's be honest. X-Men movies have been terrible with their continuity. Terrible. And this is even Bryan Singer coming back, and even he's fucking up the continuity. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what did you think of X-Men Apocalypse? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with me or not? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!